We acknowledge the traditional custodians of the South East Nation, the Malakadee people of the Yuin River and the Lilquani people of the far south. We recognise their continuing connection to land, water and culture. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present. Councillors, tonight we have Deputy Mayor Thorpe, Councillor Armstrong, Councillor Jessup, Councillor Robertson, Councillor Gibson, Councillor O'Neill and Councillor Morozak. Would you like to introduce your staff, please?
Yes, we have General Counsel Matthew Grimsey, Director of Infrastructure and Assets Frank Chen, Director of Community and Place Lyle Ground, Acting Director of People and Corporate Raylene Watson, Executive Assistant Holger Barth, and Innovation and Technology Project Officer Connor Watson.
Thank you. There was no apologies tonight. There's no leave of absent tonight and there's no one absent. Councillors, does anyone wish to declare an interest in any of tonight's agenda items?
No, thank you,
No,
Mayor.
Mayor. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. There's no planning tonight. Straight into 15.1. Outcome of the annual review of the Strategic Risk Register. Report number 15.031-26. I refer the councillors to the recommendation. Do I have a councillor to move the motion, please? Councillor Armstrong and a seconder. Councillor Gibson. Councillor Armstrong, do you wish to?
No, thanks, Mayor. I'm just going to cough all the way through it.
It's okay. All right, do I have any other councillors that have got a question or? Oh dear, Miss Councillor.
The only the comment I'd make is there's a couple of uses of the term reasonable in the document, and that's potentially a subjective measure where we're trying to really make this objective. I don't have a suggestion to improve that, and I note the plan's been workshopped and so forth. But if we take that as something on notice for the next round, it's an aspect that we might be able to quantify a little better.
Okay, no worries. Thank you for that, Amy. Do I have any other comments on this? Yes?
Thank you, Mayor. I remember when we workshopped this a little while ago, all of our risk tolerances were set to low, as I recall, and I think it sort of shows the maturity of where we're at with understanding the business, that we are happy to accept some level of risk now, because we're actually doing things, and every time an organisation does something, there is always some risk that the community might be unhappy with what we do or things like that. So I think I'm quite pleased with the document, that it's a much more honest, I think, reflection of us not saying we won't do anything that has risks associated, but we just have to run the council, and risk is just an inherent part of doing the job.
Yeah. Thank you. Do I have any other? No? Okay, well, Councillor Armstrong, do you wish to close?
Just briefly, Mayor, I think what Councillor Jessup's just pointed out too, like, this is it. We are really doing things that we didn't, it wasn't in council remit a few years ago. So every time we start to get into medical things and child services, there is that risk that comes with those, and risk is sort of a bit movable, really, isn't it? Because it depends if the situation's this and that. And I think people just don't realise that a lot of things can't get done because of risk. Yeah. And it's a very complicated process, and it's a huge document. It takes a lot of time to go through it, and what seems low risk to them, in fact, could be a very high risk to council, or vice versa. So that's really all I've got to say. But you know, there's so much we do now in council that we do have to focus a lot on risk.
All right, if that's the case, I'll put the motion, and all those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors, and the motion is carried. Report number 15.032/26, adoption of the Yuin Valley Council Annual Plan 2026-2027. Do I have a councillor to move that? Councillor Jessup. And a seconder? Councillor Mrozek. Do you have anything to?
That's fine. I'm happy to do it.
Okay, do I have any other questions or statements about this? Yes,
Thank you, Mayor. Just a brief one. Maybe I'm not remembering it correctly, but just the introduction about this document. The second paragraph is something that kind of struck me because it puts this annual plan in the context of what's actually happening at the moment. And there's a lot happening globally, be it the conflicts in the Middle East, be it our cost of living crisis, be it there's just a lot happening. Climate change, El Nino predicted. This is kind of all stuff that's super up to date. It reflects the environment in which we operate and in which this plan projects. And I found this just very helpful to be reminded of this at the very beginning of this document. So thanks.
thank you. Don't have any other? Okay. Councillor Jessup?
No, thank you, Mayor. Just a very quick comment. I think the triangle on page 8 reflects really well the sort of hierarchy of disclosure that we're doing, from the livability framework at the base to the community vision. Most of that stuff we've updated. Some of them hadn't been updated for 5 or 6 or 10 years in places. So I think we're in a very good place, and this particular document is just part of the ongoing disclosure that we're making, and people can ask questions based on what they're being shown. Thanks.
Okay. If that's the case then, I'll put the motion, and all those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors, and the motion is carried. Report number 16.010/26, adoption of the long-term financial plan. I refer the councillors to the recommendation. Do I have a councillor, please, to move the motion for me? Councillor Mrozek, and a seconder, Councillor O'Neill. Councillor Mrozek, would you like to open with anything there?
Thank you, Mayor. Look, a well-prepared, well-written document, I think. The projections for the next 10 years up until 35, 36, show that we're on a good trajectory. It basically just summarizes nicely where we came from and where we're going. And I don't want to take too far away from the next agenda item, but there's some overlap between our current budget estimates and the long-term financial plan, and it's good to see that there is a lot of consistency where we've, in the long-term financial plan predicted this or that is what's going to happen for this current financial year. Yes, we see this roughly met, so that just shows that our projections work, and that gives me confidence that for the future years this will just stay like that if no major disruptions happen. So
Fingers crossed.
thank you, well done.
Do I have anyone else that'd like to?
So this is a rate increase in this, was that the next item?
This one.
That's the next item.
Okay, so Lucas, you don't, yes, sorry, Amy.
I'll just note, there is, it does forecast rate increases over coming years. And it's worth noting that it's quite a different situation to what we saw, say, 4 or 5 years ago. And so I think it was 6%, 5%, 4.5%, 4%, something like that. So not necessarily CPI, but much closer, and not double-digit stuff that awfully scary.
And those rate increases were what was set 3 years ago now, I believe, when we were having to make, and still are making, major corrections from decisions that were taken around, like having a no rate increase during COVID for a couple of years. So, and we obviously had the large double-digit increase, but those zero increases have a compounding impact. And what we've obviously committed to and workshopped has been keeping, we can't just keep on asking for more and more rates. So we're very strict as the executive in making sure that we're working within those set rate increases and the moderation of those coming back towards CPI over time. And we'll just continue, as we've been in the workshops with yourselves, looking for efficiencies wherever we can possibly get them, but also making strategic investments. So it's a balancing act, as you'll appreciate.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So Mayor, in the graph on page 61 of the agenda, it shows us going to deficit this year, getting a bit worse next year, and then coming back to break even the year after. If I could just really sort of get the CEO to maybe clarify what's the key drivers of that, because we'd all like to at least break even, but clearly we're making a decision not to.
Is that your limit?
Sure. You want to?
No.
Okay, sure. So we have. Let me just grab so that I stick to the actual. Come on, Ray. This is all.
And I suppose why you're looking for your notes.
Sure.
I accept that we can't. We could not do things, and we could have a break-even budget, and it is that balance between doing stuff and not doing stuff. And I see that there is a plan to move into a surplus, and I think the context of on a $30-40 million business. People might look at making $200,000 or $300,000 or $400,000 and think, well, that's a lot of money. But if you think of it as a percentage of the turnover of the organisation, it's actually probably within the break-even band that, for most of us. So I don't think there's anything exceptional. 2035, whoever's on council then can celebrate, that making that large amount of money then. So I accept that we're not always going to make a surplus. Have you found your spot yet?
No, I haven't. But so I'll ad lib it for you. Look, it's obviously a slower return to surplus than we predicted in our previous long-term financial plan. This council has made some strategic decisions that are now baked into this. So specifically, the largest driver here is an investment in a childcare centre for Huonville. Obviously, to offset that, we've had to make other decisions which are largely contained in the annual budget, but then also are projected across the long-term financial plan, which is really around asset diligence. So not being very committed to not just building new assets without a good basis and a cost benefit assessment being done on those. Next year, the 27-28 is where we feel that the first impact of that childcare centre. It has an impact on our operations. We also have still the compounding effects of our of wages growth and our new EA. So we feel that dip. But then as the financial adjustments that we've made through the rest of the long-term financial plan come in and start to offset the impact of that childcare centre, we're just on that return to surplus and a slower trajectory. The dip you see in 2032-33 is when we come back for our next local government elections, which is at that stage, given that the costs of those have been escalating by 5% a year based on what we've seen from the current election to this one. So it's around, I don't know if any of you guys know the actual number, but 240,000 is the assumption that's made there. So it's not a small thing. So that's what that dip is, and then a correction again after that.
Democracy is a costly thing, but
Yes.
I know we certainly have budgeted a couple of million, as I recall, for the childcare centre.
Yep.
Now, some of that's also going to come out of asset renewal for the old centre anyway, so that's not necessarily hitting the bottom line, but there's other aspects like the planning and stuff hitting the bottom line, or what's because that's planning for that centre and all the works that we're going to have to do.
That's right, because it's obviously a multi-year build, and then the processes we do to offset it. So there's you receive costs in 1 year, and then
So it's some
the
timing
reductions.
issues,
It's
yeah.
it's timing issues. So ultimately, what you're looking at, and that includes when we see that dip for election, what you ultimately want to look at is what the trend is doing, and also noting that councils. I mean, what our income is. We should be meeting our financial targets, but we also should be getting that money back out the door into services to people in any 1 year. So we're not looking to have some giant surpluses. We want to build up. We want to have healthy cash balances aligned to investments that we know are coming.
And I take the point that the capital reserves are healthy, but
Yeah.
yeah, a trend line would have been quite useful, isn't it, actually?
That's a good. Yeah. I'll work on that next time.
Next time.
Yeah.
But the trend line looks good. I've just drawn it. Yep.
All right, do we
Thank
have
you.
any other? Oh, that's fine, yes. Councillor?
Just talking about that line that's upping and downing and finally upping, I think the thing to remember is too, if people look at a graph, they're going to maybe get a little bit panicked about all of that. But at the end of the day, we're getting new facilities. We're not losing money on old facilities. We're going to be able to grow those facilities. We're going to be able to mature them and provide a better service to the community. So at the end of the day, we're going to come out the other side of it, but we also have these brand new, buildings that are going to have a longer life and a longer financial outlook. So I think it's just the ride to how you get there, isn't it, really?
It is, and it's also, again, as this council has put through, the work that we need to do on our assets generally next year, on revals, what assets, are our assets future fit, what directions do we need to make. All these things, a long-term financial plan is a series of assumptions, effectively. We live, and I'd go back to Councillor Mrozek's, it's why we put in there the uncertain times we live in. I keep waking up thinking, it's going to get better, and it just gets more and more chaotic all the time. So there are so many variables that can impact this one way or the other. All we can do is make evidence-based strategic decisions and deal with what we have, but on the assumptions that we've got at the moment, which we work through, that's where the chips fall, which shows modest deficits for the next 2 years, and then getting into a position where we're into the black, and moving ahead. So
And still offering really good service to the community. So.
that's exactly right. Yeah.
And I mean, historically, this council's got a lot of old buildings. There's lots of old buildings. There's lots of old infrastructure. So it becomes about picking which ones we're going to present to the public and be usable also, and what we keep and what we don't keep. And it's not something we come to lightly. Like there's a lot of, And people say, but you've got this $10 million or this $8 million. But what they don't understand is council still has to chip into that, to push it over the edge. And that money has to come from somewhere. Yeah. And then they go, but, now you're in deficit or now you're in surplus. But it's right, it's a long-term plan. So it's good to have this conversation where people can see it, because often they don't understand the process on how we get there. I think it's going to be, I can't wait for a very good, nice centre. It's going to be great when it's up. It's going and so that's how I've explained it to my people that have asked. But
Thank you.
I think we're travelling pretty well, considering.
Any other? No? Councillor Mrozek, do you want to close? You got anything else to say about this?
Not much, just compliments on the composition of this document. Well done presented, and good job. Thank you.
Well done. Thanks, Lucas. All those in favour then, please raise your hand. That's all councillors. The motion is carried. Report number 16.011/26, adoption of the 26-27 budget estimates and rates and charges. I have a councillor to move the motion. I've got Councillor Robertson and a seconder. Well, I could go Councillor Thorpe.
Any councillor, any councillor.
Go. Okay, yeah, is there any questions, or Councillor Robertson, would you like to open?
Yeah, noting that we've workshopped this over quite a number of workshops earlier this calendar year and starting actually back last year. And I'll make some comment on it, but perhaps first I'd invite the CEO. I always look at budgets and I like to test them. Are they a conservative, cautious budget? Are they an optimistic, oh, we can do this budget? Or are they somewhere in the middle? Because that's the point that I like to see.
I love your animation.
I know, it's so cool, isn't
Amy.
It's sorry for being nerdy about numbers.
Story time in kindergarten.
My mum was a bookkeeper. Anyway, CEO, my understanding is that we've actually probably done a bit better in the current financial year than we had set out. Do we have a culture of conservative budgeting where we ought to expect to do better than the numbers presented to us? Or, in light of some of the circumstances that are affecting this budget a little differently to the more ordinary years we've had, are we meeting that balanced, reasonable, not too optimistic but not too cautious?
That only goes on what you're thinking too, because other people will have different thoughts too. But
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I think we don't have a culture of setting cautious budgets. I think we've got a culture of being disciplined in how we manage our expenses. And the answers I've previously given, where we've seen our consistently, a lot of eyebrows raised through the course of this year, like, when are the big variations going to come? When are the variations going to come? When's it going to hit? And we've been tracking better. And we've just been, again, disciplined in it's not been, we've had ups and downs. There's no structural improvement that's happened here, and no one project where it's just been, it was grossly overblown. This has been disciplined. It's baselined in disciplined budget management across every unit of council, sticking to the annual plan, the deliverables that were agreed, and not trying to extend ourselves into areas that we shouldn't go and we don't have permission to go, and which ultimately cost money. That was some of the discipline we haven't had in the past. And just setting budgets based on as accurate as possible assumptions. So within that, if you set those basics right in a sector as dynamic as ours, there are going to be ups and downs. But I think what we're seeing is we're just getting the basics right in our day-to-day discipline, and that's keeping us close to the line. This year, we've done well, but there's no one thing that's been the key driver for that.
I think your mention of accuracy, that's the sort of language I want to hear in terms of researching the likely costs. So that allows a tighter, more disciplined management of the budget. Now, the other thing I turned my mind to leading into this was about cost of living, and as a general, 6% rate rise is probably more than any of us would like to be approving. So part of my mind turned to what's the impact of this? Can our community afford it? And I looked back through previous years' figures just through the operational reports in monthly minutes. And I seemed to see an increase in the outstanding rates amounts, which I thought over the past few years was potentially adding up to an extra 5% of rates being overdue. So I've asked the question about checking and verifying those figures, because they're often operational figures that come through at the time. And when you look back as a proportion of total rates, you might be able to get a more accurate figure. So I got an answer to that, thank you, which has been circulated to all councillors. And I'm not sure if you want to speak to that.
I can do. or you can
It indicates
round it out if you want.
indicates to me that the rise is less than 5%. So it's more in probably the 2, maybe 3% over the past few years, noting that a component of that is long overdue rates, which happen for a variety of reasons, but which tend to grow year on year and then get dealt with in batches, which potentially resets that growing component of what's overdue. And council's in the process of doing one of those cleanups or addressing those now. So we'd be expecting that to come down as that process comes through. So I find that encouraging. I still note the hardship processes that we've got in place. They really just address the late fees and helping people to plan and structure their ability to pay rates rather than giving any specific relief to the rate bill. So there still might be some people who struggle, but I note that our staff use those processes regularly and in an engaged manner, so that's encouraging. And I checked on whether there are any particular characteristics, whether there's any particular sector or land use type that might be overrepresented in that data set of late. And we didn't identify anything particular there. So thank you very much for those answers. And in light of that, I'm comfortable with this proposal.
Thank you. Do I have any other questions? Yes?
Yeah, I've got a couple. Generally, I think that the budget seems to be about where it needs to be, but a couple of specific questions. 1.2 million in plant and equipment renewal. That's a big truck. How many trucks, or what sort of plant are we renewing?
Didn't realise how many trucks you had for that.
You get about 2 for that, don't you?
Couple.
I'll throw to you, Frank.
Mayor, there's a number of vehicles we talk about. That's a plant and fleet. So we talk about not just the trucks, also light vehicles and also machineries, like including the hydro mowers and other gears that council use. So we do have
That's all based on an asset replacement
correct.
cycle, so it's just standard, so it's you're not adding a couple of new trucks
No new gear. It's renewal and replacement.
Yeah, cool, thank you. Wages and salaries. I know, over the last 3 or 4 years, there's been a process of sort of right-sizing the salary component and the staffing, so there's been a bit of change coming. Are there new positions in this, or is this largely the EA, which I know took a while and a lot of work from staff and management to negotiate that, and well done for getting that across the board. But yeah, just if you talk to section 2.1 just around what makes that almost $1 million increase in wages and salaries.
Yeah, driven by same staffing load basically, but it's the EA, the 5% increase. Yep.
Cool. Well, hopefully that mostly will get spent in the Huon Valley, so that's probably a good thing. A lot of it does, yeah. And that's it until I find my next question, which I've lost somewhere, but
Okay.
somebody else will jump in, I'm sure.
If they don't, you're missed out. No. Any other questions?
Oh, actually,
I always found it.
$4 million on road maintenance, which I just think is so I like the balance between about $7 million in asset replacement. So that's I don't think people realise how much of our annual budget goes into depreciation, which is what $6 or $8 million, but that's pretty well getting spent all the time anyway. And I noticed that there's well over half of that was, if I can find it, was roads. And that's just road maintenance, and then the other new projects are things like, I think a lot of that's in Signet with the car park and stuff. I'm assuming that $2 million.
Yeah, so
Car park.
so those new aspects are all grant funded. And one of your other questions was around some of the sealed roads that we talked about. So Mountain River, Dip, North Huon. So again, in the long-term financial plan is Dip and North Huon, but they're subject to 80% grant funding. And so by putting them in there, we're saying these are, because we've done the work to validate that once we get it sealed, the amount of traffic on those roads makes sense for us to be sealing them, as well as the amenity improvements for locals. However, if we have to fund that ourselves, it's a extremely costly exercise, and we can't afford it. So we've got them in there to say they're plans that we want to progress, but we'd progress them through grant funding. Mountain River Road was the one that we did commit to, and we're currently seeking grant funding for that one as well.
So the figure in the document, is that the residual council cost, or is that the total cost of the total grant cost as well?
For the other
Dip
two,
Road, for example, is in there.
yep.
Um,
So we've got the entire cost of it, but we've then got that offset proportionally by 80% of a grant fund there. So it allows us to have it in there, and that's something that we haven't done before. We wanted to signal that these are projects that are on there, but they are subject to grant funding. It gives staff the ability to progress that as a priority. We know it's a community priority, and we know that they'll stack up once we do it. So we wanted to have it in there. And again, it comes back to Councillor Robinson's point before. We're really trying to drum in that we don't do things that are not contained in the annual plan and the annual budget. So it's important for these ones because there is significant investment to make to go and seal a road and to seek a grant. We want them in there, but they are offset by the expectation of a grant in there. So if we don't get the grant, it's just gonna balance itself out.
We'll get the grant one day.
One day.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Do I have any others?
Just to say that through the workshops we've done, I'm sort of really pleased that we've stuck to our long-term financial plan, and there's been some very concise massaging of this budget to bring it in at that. So yeah, just thanks to the staff for all the work in making it happen.
Thanks, Paul.
I'm sure it's been a headache.
Do we have any other? Yes.
Yes, I'd like to pick up comments made that we realise that we've made hard decisions, and but there's no future in running deficits, and we can continue to be reactive and flexible in regard to costs outside of control. And probably the only lever left now is to have less services if fuel prices go up more or whatever. So yeah, we feel we know the communities aren't under pressure. We think we've made a right decision down the middle sort of thing.
I think it's worth pointing out that's where the workshop started as they do. We're here to deliver services to the community.
Yeah.
And so, it started with, what's do we think everything we're doing is purposeful, is aligned to our strategy, are we being efficient in its delivery? And we can always get better on these things, but ultimately we're doing pretty damn well. And we agreed that the services that we're doing remain necessary. And that's, again, the nod in the annual plan and the annual budget around the world we find ourselves in. We also know that as things get tougher, those expectations and needs on local government to provide social services and other things that we currently do will only go up. So, we make a plan assuming that we're going to continue to do these things, and but we are at that point where to cut deeper is either continue with the efficiency trend that we're currently on, which is going really, really well, and I hope will start to pay off even more dividends. But notwithstanding that, then it is literally just what services, what do we value more or less, and hopefully they're levers we don't have to pull during the year, but we just have to come at it with evidence-based disciplined decision making.
Okay. Yes.
Still early. I did send out an email, and I just want to acknowledge the work that Ray did as she's struggling to get any say in tonight's meeting. So I thought I'd recognise her hard work. But in the document, there's quite a few amounts of money going up and down, and I know we made a commitment to 6%, and I think the average ratepayer potentially who looks at the rate increase that the cents per dollar is changing on one lot and not the other and it's all higgledy-piggledy. I think, the formula clearly is a link between what the value general increases land and then trying to work it. But we've worked it backwards, and I'm happy that Ray's confirmed that for all the rate categories, we've averaged the net increase to 6%, but unfortunately some people will go up 7%, some people will go up 4%, so it's a bit of a lottery. I note that we've kept minimum rate in stormwater at 6% as well, but the curbside has gone up significantly more than 10%. So I've got 80 litre is a 10% increase, 120 is a 14%, and a 240 is a 14%, but recycling is only 5%. I'm just wondering if the CEO would like to explain that on behalf of Ray, or if she'd like to do that, just so we're clear on why that increase is more than 6%.
Some things I'm just not going to make.
I don't mind, you want me to? We'll get your seat up here next time, so you can't hide. Curbside, it's driven primarily by the state government waste levy.
Which is increased by how much?
Another $20-something.
That's double? The levy's doubled, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's the actual the number of units has actually increased as well. So it's north of $20 actually. Yeah, per tonne. Sorry, that's what that rate is. So it's gone through. So every second year, it's adding that waste levy has been increasing. So this year, last year we didn't receive that waste levy coming through. This year is the on year. So that's what's jumped onto that. But there is also rising costs in just landfill disposal generally, as well as transport costs. We have ratepayers will notice that for an 80 litre bin, the cost has gone up 10%. For the largest bin categories as a general waste, it's gone up 14%. The reason we do that is because we continue to incentivise the use of 80 litre bins or the smaller, incentivise people to create less waste, and for those smaller households who are generating less waste, they're getting that a reward of a slightly lower rate per litre.
And we provide education on composting and all that sort of stuff to encourage people to do
Absolutely.
that.
Yep.
And if somebody's got a 120 litre bin, is there any penalty for them to ring up council and say, give me an 80 litre bin?
All up and opt into 80. So, and these are the things that we've included in rates notices and things in the past, encouraging people to do that, and can put out through social media, etc. Campaigns to encourage that as well. So, so we're passing through externalities. It's a user pays system. The cost of waste, and we've said before, cost of waste is just going to march ever upwards. And the waste levy is there deliberately to make people feel pain, so that they create less waste. That is what it's for ultimately.
And that's obviously going to flow on to people turning up at the waste transfer station with a trailer of waste. That's going to be increasing slightly through the charges, isn't it?
Potentially, yep, correct. So, similar. We covered that in our fees that we've already passed through. It's not a 10% increase, because we have, as part of the ongoing, using evidence, using data, the balance of waste generated and the income derived, so the revenue streams, we're effectively correcting ourselves, or have been over a number of years. We've kept the weighbridge, so self-haul waste is a far more modest. I think it was at 3%. So it's a 3% increase on that stuff.
And that again reflects our calculation based on the cost of
Correct, and that's again just reflecting efficiencies, et cetera, that we've brought to that thing, but also the data that we're able to collect from that weighbridge to actually understand what contribution of waste is going into the hole that council's liable for, and it's reflecting that curbside is actually has very much the lion's share, and what we've passed on is the actual user costs relevant to these different areas.
Thank you. A comprehensive answer.
Okay. Do I have, yes, councillor Armstrong?
Sorry, Mayor, thank you. That was a lovely explanation, but now I just want to throw a bit of a spanner in that thing. I get it totally what we're saying. We've discussed this heaps of times with the cost of waste but honestly, the amount of homes I go to that have a bin with one bag in it, even for an 80 litre bin, $266 a year for one bag every fortnight is a stretch for some people. Like, it's a lot to pay. That one bag could just be like $5 or whatever it is at the waste station. And they say to me, do I have to have this? Do I have to have this? Well, yes, you do, because if you're on the run, you've got to have the bin. At some point in the near future, it would be fantastic if we could come up with some sort of plan where perhaps neighbours could share a bin and split the cost but still make it viable for the run, which I don't know whether that is something, because there's a lot of places I go that don't have full bins, and they're having to fork out $300, and their rent is taking such a chunk, their cost of living, everything. And I think, I don't know how you do it. I don't even know if we can do it. I know the budget doesn't allow it. I know all the things that doesn't make it happen. But I'm wondering if at some stage the council could squeeze something out of nowhere.
You may recall a workshop we had. It's a couple of months ago now, so forgive it if you don't recall it fully.
Yesterday's a struggle for me.
But we had Andrew come and present on exactly the thinking across all our business areas, but waste was one of them. And so we looked at the opportunity, and again, the focus we've got on the data and what it would mean, and so that we can make an evidence-based decision on this. So, and as people generate less waste, we need to react to that, and we've got that very much in the recycling sphere at the moment. It hasn't been in place that long, but the container deposit scheme, we are seeing reductions in our volumes in curbside recycling. If we start seeing mass reductions in curbside general waste generation as well, you start looking at whether it's sharing between neighbours, or do you halve the frequency of those trucks. There's obvious implications then around the bin smells and yada yada yada. But that workshop was all about, here are the options, here are the levers we could pull. We're already working on it. We just need the evidence to make it right. And yes, the way it currently works is we do need everyone to be contributing. If the truck's going past your place, you're contributing. And even if you're only putting one bag in that bin, it's still a convenient service. There's the time cost, whatever. And you're also, we know that in areas where it's a paid bin service, there's less chance of fly tipping, throwing it in council bins, chucking it in the bush, that kind of stuff as well. So you're also, like, that curbside solution is making a contribution to those overall environmental goals as well. So it's a very careful balance, but that workshop showed we're already working, we're constantly working on these ways to do it. And there's every potential that over the course of this year, and particularly with diesel prices the way they are, and the waste levy, it does every single time there's new levers pull, it changes what people might find acceptable. At what price point do we need to change? And I think over the course of this year that we're currently setting budget for, we'll be in a position where we can make some decisions to potentially make some quite significant changes to that current contract. And then ultimately, we need to refer that into a renewal of the contract with that service provider.
Yeah, well, there's that as well. I think it's interesting. I think it's good. Like, I know when I look in my parents' rubbish bin, they've got a big one, and they used to fill that like years ago, but now they compost. Yep. And they've always recycled and they've always compost, but now they've gotten right into it. And there's like 2 bags a fortnight. That's it, just 2 bags.
And if they've got a big one thing any of you councillors can do in your travels is if you do see that, and ask them if they've got a 240 litre and they're routinely not filling that, let them know. Contact council, move to that 80 litre bin. Save yourself some reasonable money.
Or the children could share their bin with them.
Yes, absolutely. Just like do a little bit of community networking and find that family that isn't on a bin collection
Yeah.
route who wants to take advantage of your bin space
Absolutely.
each fortnight
I just think, you know, you
and drop off
might-
a cake or
Oh,
a
I can just see you running around putting your.
I've done them today. I just walked across the lane.
Just driving down the road, find an empty bin, put your rubbish in.
No, only your parents.
Oh, good. Oh, I can't do
I'm
that.
allowed to do it too, but no, seriously, I think we are heading towards better result because, you know, and a lot of people just are struggling with the $300-ish a year.
But
Less
you
landfills
work that
have-
Less
out
landfill is a good
over
thing.
26, you know, like you
Yeah.
divide that.
Yep. Yeah, I
And when
know.
you said there's 1 or 2 bags in there,
I know.
well, that's what they're paying for. So, I mean,
I know.
even if you took the bin away, they're still got to pay that. They're still going to pay that amount of money every
I
fortnight.
suppose there is that. But
So, you know, yeah.
if we could reduce it more and share it with a neighbour or cut the frequency, that would be good too, though.
But that's entirely up to people wherever they live if they want to do that. They don't have to get permission.
Well,
They
it's
still
up
have to
to
have
us. We're still going to have a bin. If they're on the run, they're still going to have the bin, though.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, further down the track, when council gets really good at doing the waste thing.
We are really good at doing
Yes, I
waste.
know. You know what I mean?
They're reducing the frequency. They're
Yeah.
that is very big things, but there are people that are filling it every week and will be really, because we've surveyed people. We know these things. So again, there's for and against. We need to consult thoroughly. And I would say as well that relatively, we're running curbside collection is an urban service, and we're running it into the absolute rural margins. And when you look at the relative, our service is very good value compared to urban peers.
No.
So we are honestly passing through those user fees. We're trying to keep it to an absolute minimum because we recognise the environmental benefit, and we want this to be as affordable as it can be for everyone. But it absolutely, when you think about it, to run a truck down to pick up your bin
Oh, yeah.
down at
Like
Dover,
I
get
get the costs connected to it. And of course, the thing is too, they don't have an option to go to a waste deposit down there. So,
This is taking it for
this is taking it for them as well. But I was just sort of thinking more like in unit spaces, like little sort of, where there's clusters of units and they've all got a bin. Perhaps they all don't need a bin. Perhaps there could be one communal bin or something. But anyway, that's a story for another day down the track.
All right.
Yeah, keep working on it.
All right. Do I have any other? Yes?
Thank you, Mayor. While this conversation was happening, I was actually wondering if I should ask this question or not, but it was motivated by Councillor Robertson's question about, highlighting this trend for us, that there is, this trend that we've got increasing percentages of people being late or not paying their rates. And so where's this coming from? And cost of living pressure is probably one of the biggest contributors in this picture. The question that kind of arose for me is how long can we, to remain financially sustainable, keep up with this increase? Like certainly there will be a point reached where the amount of outstanding rates will reach a point where it will, affect our financial capability. So, where's our threshold? And in order to avoid that, there are mechanisms in place. They're not necessarily in our sphere of control, but we've got something like a federal and a state budget that are clearly designed or should be designed to address cost of living pressures. So, as admirable as it is to say, we can't put any more pressure onto our residents and our ratepayers by increasing rates, because there is already so much external pressure on it. When do we have to actually be more serious about demanding more from the other tiers of local government to actually action on this cost of living that or to a big part contributes to those pressures? Why do we, what I'm wondering is, why does local government have to suck it up or be the last point of resort where there's clearly other levels of government that should take on this responsibility. I just think back on, I'm not quite sure which submission it was where we it was about the provision of medical services and the double dipping, basically once paying as a taxpayer into the federal bucket that then is putting money out for medical services to be provided, which don't arrive in our municipal area to the extent that they should. So we are the council is the one kind of filling this gap. And this is, again, contributing to rate increases or to the package while we have to ask this amount of rate. So where is our threshold? When do we start saying, like, look, federal government, state government, we need a little bit more money down here because our people are clearly struggling, and they're struggling now to a point where it affects our financial sustainability and our ability to provide services.
They would look, the process is that we don't stop doing that.
I believe we're strong advocates.
We are, yeah.
When is it going to be
It's-
unacceptable or impossible for us to do what we need to do?
Yeah. And there's no clear answer to that one. Because we do try, there's other councils that are in a lot harder position than what we are that are going to come to that. But yeah, we've been asking for more of a cut from Canberra for council.
Yeah, I think where our advocacy is a little different is that we're not on medical. We're not just asking for more money. We're actually identifying structural changes that need to happen. And literally, the Mayor and I met with Senator Claire Chandler today from Liberal Party. And I had another conversation with Peter George today, local MP, both of those about medical services and advocacy down our way. Both of them really clearly on message and understanding and appreciative of the structural changes that we're advocating for. And I think a lot of the stuff we've been doing resonates, people make sense, but it's, to change Medicare is a significant piece. Our thinking has evolved a little bit. We put a great advocacy piece to ALGA that Councillor Thorpe delivered 2 years ago now, I think. We have subsequently got grant funding, which effectively we're putting into a project to demonstrate that a different funding model can be used to deliver a different model of care that is cheaper for the federal budget, better for the Tasmanian budget, and provides better level of care. It's very frustrating when you can literally demonstrate that all those things happen, but there's so many levels of government and so many players and interest groups that it does just take time to get there. But the current interest that's going on, I think as difficult as it was to be a guinea pig, Kerry Duggan and Signet Family Practice and the recent issues that they had over there, which had a big groundswell of community but political support right across the spectrum, has actually lit another fuse under that advocacy, and I'm expecting that we'll take another dig at it. And I guess it takes time, and it takes time particularly when you're recognising that the state budget is under pressure, the federal budget is under pressure. We can't just keep asking for more money because the more money is not there, and that's why it's getting thinned out. We need to advocate for smart structural changes, which not everyone is going to like, but in the medical sphere, for example, changing to block funding or changing the bulk billing arrangements for a wider group of professionals for MM5, so MM5 to MM7 is rural areas, who are the worst represented for medical professionals across the whole of the country. It's not just the Huon Valley. Changing that structure, you can literally deliver more care, more cost effectively, and everybody wins. So that's what we're advocating for, not just give us more money to pour into a broken system.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's just I'm better digest this before I get it right. But no, thanks for the clarification.
No problems. Yes?
Sorry, just one more thing. Following up from that thing too, people need to realise that most councils don't have what we are managing within our scope. They don't have medical centres, childcare centres, 2 pools or anything else, and we're still doing reasonably well financially by reinvesting in these things, delivering a service to all of our people and whoever else wants to use it at an affordable rate for them. So we're a very small council that's probably delivering a lot of services that other councils don't have, and we're effectively managing that. So it's probably, we talk about the cost of waste and everything else, but when you look at the advantages of the other side of what's going on, it's probably not too bad, really. Like, it's probably, you know, and I know that we've talked about doing things, we've had to defer them for another 5 years because other things have come, but they're still there, you know, they're still in the pipeline, they're not going away, they've just been shuffled to make room. So I think when you look at what we deliver as opposed to what other people deliver, like different councils, it's probably not so bad. We just forget about it because we do it all the time. It just becomes a normal.
I don't think that to the person that can't pay their rates, they don't really care what they pay in Crinborough. They're only looking at what they're paying in the Yorn Valley.
Yeah.
So, and the genuine, like, one family member working and the other at home with the children, it's, at the moment, it is really, really tough.
It is tough.
And it's just being compassionate when they can't commit to too much money. And
And we can give them childcare, you know, and we can give them a medical care that's bulk billed. That's probably not likely to happen elsewhere. You know, it's just not something that a council does. So we are looking after our people, you know, in an affordable way, really, when we start looking at the benefits that we have as opposed to the things that are a little bit more expensive.
It's probably worth just putting some stats to that because it's
Yeah.
often talked about that, you know, we do medical and we do childcare and whatever else, but childcare, we deliver 70% of the early education in the valley. Medical, and to jump a gun on a soon-to-be media release, we will get close to delivering 25,000 medical appointments this year.
It's a lot.
That is a lot.
Yeah, it
And
is.
those are all, we have tested the market. The private sector will not come to Dover and Geeston where we operate. So for those 25,000 people, the cost of them going to Huonville or Hobart or elsewhere, that's very quickly gobbled up in, a rates conversation and whatever else.
Yeah.
So it's, they're not a small, it's a couple of doctor appointments, 25,000 of them, and doing it again as our recent papers and workshops have shown, in a way where we're getting incrementally more cost effective in delivering those services towards a balanced position. We should be really proud of that. But these services they're economic and social essentials that if there was a private sector option for it, we've talked about it before, we would gladly step aside and make sure that was a quality service and we're gone. But that's not the situation we're in. And those kind of numbers, just I think to me really, I was gobsmacked when it was, when we went over 20,000. It's just, it's no small thing.
It also shows how much people need doctors and medical services, and be able to afford them, which it makes you feel actually quite a little bit stoked that we can give those people medical attention and they can afford to come and get it because they're not having to fork out $150 a session. So, that's kind of nice. And the Women's Health Clinic, So, yes, I think we're doing all right. We just focus on the more negative stuff, don't we? Probably don't focus on the positive stuff enough.
You sounded pretty positive here tonight.
I was going to say.
My rubbish bin was a bit of a Debbie Downer, but the rest of it was all
No,
good.
it's realistic. It's that's the stuff that makes that is consequential to people. All we can do is give the answer of why
But then we
and
flow on
what
to...
we're looking at doing about it.
Yeah, that's right. All right, guys, is there any other? Okay, Councillor Robinson, did you want to close on anything?
Just note in response to Councillor Morosik's point that if we were just pushing the pressure onto the ratepayer, I wouldn't be comfortable with that. And I do recall that we've been quite proactive in pushing back in terms of feedback on the parameters that measure are used to measure how much financial assistance grant we get from the feds. But that number is a 1 point something % increase forecast for next year compared to what CPI is. So we're not keeping pace there. No, it used to be
Gone from 1% to 0.5% of GDP or something.
of federal tax revenue. Yeah, some years ago it was 1% of federal tax revenue. It's more like 0.5% now. So we're just not getting, and we're not alone in that. All councils, despite us sharing the burden of maintaining all that fundamental community infrastructure. It's a challenge, but we're doing our bit to push back there, and some of these processes take time.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'll put that motion forward, and if you're in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors. Motion is carried. Okay. There are no reports to be considered in closed tonight. I would like to thank the people watching from home, because we don't have any in the gallery. And I advise that in accordance with Huon Valley Council audio recording of council meetings policy, recording of the open session of this meeting ceased at 7:01 p.m. and the meeting's closed.